Hi, this is Nathan Lehman at the Ultra Running Company here in Charlotte, North Carolina, and today we have an amazing opportunity to test out a shoe that you probably won't see much of anywhere else. It's the Hoka Stinson. No, actually, I'm just kidding. This is a prop. I don't usually do that, but I put up the Hoka Stinson, the original Hoka Stinson, because I wanted to remind folks watching this review how different this shoe was than anything else on the market when Hoka came out with it. Hoka is now about 10 years old. Over the last 10 years, they've come out with shoes that are more and more mainstream, that look better and better cosmetically, that take the Hoka philosophy of maximal cushion, a bucket seat, and a rockered front end, and made those a little more acceptable to folks that are looking for just an everyday shoe. Well, in their 10th anniversary, Hoka also decided they didn't want people to forget what really brought them to the table. And so, like the Honey Badger, Hoka's decided they just don't give a... This is the Hoka TenNine. This is the current most extreme example of Hoka's trail geometry and what they're calling a concept shoe to move forward and really talk about what Hoka wants to be doing for the next decade. We're really excited to have it at the Ultra Running Company. We're excited to share the opportunity with our friends at FootRx in Asheville, North Carolina. As far as I know, we're the only 2 stores in the Southeast that have the shoe, that have run in the shoe, and that can talk about it with folks that come in on a daily basis. For those of you that can't come in, I'm really excited to be here talking about the Hoka TenNine in our Thursday shoe reviews. Thanks for joining me. Let's jump in. As always at the Ultra Running Company, we look at a couple of key items on our shoes. Hoka TenNine is a comfort cushioned, low drop trail running shoe. So what does that mean? Let's dive right in. First of all, comfort cushioned. I don't know of many shoes that are more comfort cushioned than the Hoka TenNine. While not Hoka's most cushioned shoe, the TenNine is pretty oversized. You can't get around how it looks. See this giant, probably the largest heel I've ever seen on a commercial shoe, blending down with a huge stack here, blending right down into the front where it actually overextends from the toe as well. That's a little harder to see, but most shoes are going to come right down here on the end. The Hoka TenNine actually ramps right over and takes the traditional rocker of a Hoka, brings it all the way back to the heel of the shoe, pushes you forward and takes you right off the front. Hoka advertises this shoe as having a 33 millimeter heel height, and we measured it at actually a millimeter more with the insole out. So 34 millimeters of stack height is not this entire amount of cushion. You actually sit down in that kind of legacy Hoka bucket seat. This is the deepest bucket that Hoka's made in a running shoe. 34 millimeters of cushion is a lot. Add to that about 4.5 millimeters of insole. The Hoka has an ortholite insole, which we don't expect to compress much, but we always try and talk about that a little bit differently because insoles do compress faster than the outsole, this midsole portion of the shoe. So at 34 millimeters plus 4.5, we're looking at almost a 39 millimeter heel on this shoe. And Hoka advertises the front as 29 millimeters. We got 30, add on that same 4.5. What you get is a 38-34 shoe with the accompanying 4 millimeter drop throughout the shoe. So the heel is going to be 4 millimeters thicker than the front, and that just means traditionally that when you come through, you're able to kind of clear through and land right under your body. Now that's not necessarily the idea with the Hoka TenNine. What Hoka's trying to do is take runners in the later stages of their longest races and ease the transition from the heel to the forefoot. So according to their studies, what happens is even folks that are hitting the heel in an extended motion are on the ground for the same amount of time in the TenNine as they would be in any traditional shoe. What this does is shoots them from the heel to the forefoot and off. So even though it's a longer overall space, the geometry of this shoe is designed to bring you towards the front and push you off as quickly as possible, given the fact that at the end of these longest races, you're probably in no condition to do that yourself. And that's the idea between this really new geometry. And the other big piece of it is if you look at the heel of the shoe, you've got a really, really wide heel and a genuinely wide forefoot. What this means is that overall you've got so much surface area on this shoe that Hoka feels like they didn't need to go as deep with the tread lugs. Basically what they've done is gotten the same surface area out of fewer, basically more pointy lugs, and allowed you to get better traction using those. Now in practice, we found that that worked well on groomed surfaces, had no issue at all running along relatively flat or slightly uphill groomed surfaces. Also even wet surfaces, you tend to get a good traction with this shoe. Where we found that that particular approach didn't work real well is on really technical terrain with very shifty, kind of soft, maybe sandy environments. We did slide a little bit in the shoe. So in the very most technical terrain, those with rocks, those that are going to move on you, those with pebbles and sand, we didn't get as good traction in this as we did with something like the Mafate Evo. So keep that in mind when you're trying to decide your shoes for your longest distance races. What we also find is Hoka has a good amount of hard wearing rubber on the front and a good amount of hard wearing rubber in the heel, but this entire center portion is lightweight, traditional rubber, and it doesn't give you quite the traction that these harder wearing portions do. So if you're in a race and landing on this heel portion and you're specifically landing in the back, coming through and going to the front, you're going to get the benefit of the traction in the back. You're going to flow through the front and get the benefit of the traction here in the toes. If you're landing on your toes, you're going to get your traction here. But if you're landing on your midfoot, we did get a little bit of movement under there. So again, your steepest races, your most technical races, and I'm talking things like Hard Rock in the United States, I'm talking about UTMB in Europe. This shoe is probably not going to be the shoe that takes you on those really aggressive terrains. Anything that takes place in Northern California, in the Marin Headlands, anything that takes place in the Southeast, things like Old Dominion or a Yeti trail race, this may be a really nice shoe for you where you don't need that extreme traction, but you need the confidence that you're going to land and take off in a way that you really like. So moving from this midsole and the outer sole up to the upper, we really like what Hoka's done here. Basically what they've done is they've gotten a ripstop type material, very durable. We ran in trees, stones, rocks, roots, and really didn't have any damage at all on the outsole. But really that's just a protective layer for this tongue, which is a much softer, almost neoprene type material. It's the same material right here that they've used in their other Evo products, and we've really come to enjoy it. It gives some flexibility in the forefoot area, but that neoprene extends down to the entire tongue, so it forms gusseted, almost a sock that goes from the forefoot all the way back here to your ankle and really locks you in. Then this harder ripstop material comes through and really secures everything in place. We really did feel like our foot was right where we wanted it to be in the shoe, especially if you're using a runner's loop. You can really lock your foot in. It's got a very nice pull heel on the back. We felt like that fit well. Our foot sit down in it. As I mentioned before, this is a very deep bucket. And so once we got our foot in, this heel piece just went away and allowed us to really kind of control the shoe as we were running along. The shoe itself is relatively accommodating in the forefoot. I was able to fit into a size 12, although that would not have been my size of choice. The 13 fits much better for a true 13. But if you're a 12, wear the 12. The interesting thing about sizing with this shoe is that Hoka only released it in full sizes, starting with a men's 6 and going up to a men's 13. That means if you're a half size, you've got to choose one way or the other. We strongly recommend going up half a size. So if you are a 12 and a half, go to a 13. If you're a 7 and a half, go to an 8. Women's sizes are purported to be one full size larger than the men's sizes. So a men's 7 is a women's 8. Women's 8 is a women's 9, and so forth. We think you can stick with that sizing given how accommodating the forefoot is. Now, this is not a narrow shoe, clearly on the bottom, but definitely not on the top either. So it does fit well. You get locked in here, and we felt like it held us in well, and that we were confident in it while running. What does all that weigh? Well, Hoka says that this shoe weighs 12.7 ounces. That doesn't set any records. The Stinson 5 certainly weighs more than this, but when you get up to a size 13 and you're looking at 15.1 ounces, that is a lot of shoe. Now the interesting thing is that while the Stinson 5 at about an ounce heavier than this feels like a relatively heavy shoe, this shoe on your foot feels quite a bit lighter, although you definitely know that the mass is there. That means that basically Hoka has come out with a prototype type shoe and released it to the public. They really want people's feedback on this, and they're excited to see what this new geometry can do. They're very aware that this is a polarizing look, and so what it really comes down to for us is how does it run? We enjoyed running on this shoe, but we did struggle a bit trying to figure out where we'd use it. This is a shoe designed for your very longest runs. We mean the end of a 100-miler, this shoe is going to shine for you. Although Hoka would suggest that you wear it from the beginning to the end to get the best results out of it. At the end of that 100-miler, that 200-miler, when your body has given out a little bit, your form is not as strong as it was, and you tend to land on the heel, again, we did find that the shoe has a very nice roll to it. I found my cadence to be as high or higher than normal in this shoe, despite the fact that there was a lot more mass behind me. Now, I also found on trails that this significant heel actually came up and hit my calves pretty often. I do that in a normal shoe, but it was very apparent in the TenNine. Something to be aware of as you're running through. If you think that's going to bother you, it's something I've grown used to. Perhaps I just get lazy after long runs, but it was definitely apparent in this shoe. We don't think that the fastest folks in any race are going to be wearing the TenNine. We don't think that this is a podium type shoe. We think this is a shoe for the folks that need that little extra help in getting to their goals, whether that's sub 24 at Western States, whether that's just simply finishing a 100-miler, or the opportunity to participate in a 200-miler. The folks that feel like they are really stretching themselves with those are really going to appreciate the value that this new geometry brings. For folks that are picking through the most technical descents on the toughest mountains in the world, you probably don't need this shoe, and in fact, the additional mass of the shoe is probably going to get in your way. So the best analogy we could find is this is kind of like the largest, most oversized golf club in your bag if you play golf. Do the pros need it? Probably not. Do the rest of us appreciate what that might do and the way that that oversized club might help us as we go? It's a nice thing to be able to hit a 350-yard shot with almost no skills, and this shoe allows folks that have trained but might want that extra edge to push them over the finish line to reach their goals. And we really appreciate that Hoka's coming out with a shoe that allows them to do that. Now, as I mentioned, at $250 for 1,500 pairs distributed around the country, you're going to want to jump on this quickly, but you're also going to want to decide if that person is you. We would love to help you make that decision. We hope this review has helped you out with that, and we hope you'll give it a shot at your local running store. Definitely check it out and see who has them available in your local market. If they don't, again, we're available in North Carolina along with our friends at FootRx in Asheville, and Hoka has these available on their site. Other than that, once they're gone, and I hope you've enjoyed this review. In the meantime, when you can't come in, we hope you'll follow us on social media. We're at the Ultra Running Company on Facebook and Ultra Run Co on Instagram. We're on Twitter. We have a website at ultrarunningcompany.com, and we're here where you found us on YouTube. We'd love it if you'd subscribe. Check us out each Thursday when we review shoes like the TenNine or more mainstream shoes as well. We love it, and we hope you'll love it, and we hope you'll learn to love to run.